Hi everyone. I have Michigan Sue, and she's put together some numbers that's gonna amaze all of us. It's the numbers don't lie, and it's uh, it's about the projections and so forth that have been given to us, and just what all this amounts to. So, Michigan Sue, please explain what we've been talking about.
Hi, Gary, and thank you again for all that you do and your courage. I listened to one who believes explaining that we would be getting the interest, not the principal, over 50 years. And so just to hear that, it sounds like a much smaller amount. So I got curious, and I started crunching the numbers. And I started with the $1 trillion Zimbabwe note equaling $1 US to $1 Zimbabwe. And so, and multiplying that by a low 1% on just one time in the year. So that would be 1% annually. I'm not talking about monthly interest. So if I take 1 trillion and I multiply that by 1%, that comes out to $10 billion of interest for 1 year. 10 billion divided by 12 months is 833,333 dollars. So say $833 million per month. And again, that's only compounded once annually. It's not a monthly compounding. Then I went to the other end of the spectrum, where as high as $126,000 per Zimbabwe dollar has been suggested as the maximum to negotiate for. And so I multiplied that out by 1%. And that comes out to $105 trillion per month. And again, anyone is welcome to check the math on this because the numbers are still so astronomical when you're just dealing with the interest. Then I took a middle of the road approach and considered each Zimbabwe dollar to equal $5 US and multiplied that by 1% per year divided by 12 months. And that interest figure comes out to 4.16 billion per month. So even when you're looking at the interest, the numbers are still astronomical. So I thought, well, how would that translate for an individual holding Zimbabwe currency? And it seemed to me that ultimately the individual decision comes down to not so much the dollars, but how much each person can handle as a function of willing to delegate responsibilities to enormous numbers of people to both manage and carry out projects, how sophisticated the individual is to deal with such enormous undertakings, how comfortable they are dealing with that kind of money, and to oversee everything to get a sense of whether the people you're giving the money to are doing their jobs and doing it well, and how many projects you have and how big each project is. It seems to me that's the fundamental issue in negotiating your rate, not the numbers themselves, but how comfortable and sophisticated each person is with the enormity of the projects that they might undertake according to what they negotiate. And so I wanted to cover that with you and get a sense of what you thought about that.
This is just such astronomical figures, and the amount of people that would be involved and the different management levels and so forth. If you start thinking about it, this is not only the size of a multinational company; it's the size of a country as far as all the technology and everything that you would need. And it's something that we really need to think about and plan And if all this is really true, and the thing that it would appear to me that it's so. I mean, if we all have companies that are, and we're all going to have hundreds of thousands and even millions of employees, it'd be just to because we have so much money we're dealing with to keep things going, and we're going to be the earth is going to be changing pretty fast, which is good, but we need to keep things pretty well coordinated, and it has to be complete harmony, but among everyone, it seems to me like.
Well, and that's an enormous undertaking.
Yes, it
So,
is.
at what size of a enterprise do you want to be CEO of? I mean, that's, I think, ultimately the question, and think about the also the liability that comes with that. That's never been talked about. But the CEO is ultimately liable. And I'm not saying that to frighten at all, but I do want to put reality into these numbers and what that means and what would that look like for each person. I'd really like one who serves reaction to that. And so that's why I bring this up, because even when I crunch the numbers on interest, the numbers are still astronomical.
It is mind-boggling, and it's you know as far as changing and eliminating the poverty, it looks to me like we can do that almost overnight. I mean,
Those kinds of numbers, even on the interest,
right?
the interest alone, that would seem to be exactly right. So again, it comes down to one's level of comfort and sophistication, and ultimately considering how big of a company do you want to be CEO of, and how many projects do you want to get going within that umbrella, and the sizes of each of those projects, and how much you're willing to delegate. It seems to me that's the fundamental issue.
Well, concerning that issue, I this is my own personal feelings, but I feel that Jesus Christ is the one that is the CEO, and I believe that he has a method of delegating, and I don't think it's ever been done, but I think it's described in the Bible as the plumb line standard, and I believe that he's given me an understanding how that is, and it's basically I think it's the office of prophets, people that hear God's voice, and so in other words, uh, every department of every company probably would have rather than advisors and so forth, it would be this standard of prophetic voices, and I think that there would be you'd have to have these people pray over every decision you made, and give them 24 hours to see what the Lord says, and then do whatever He says, and it's like it's not the raising of hands to make a decision, but it's like the seven eyes upon one stone is the way the Bible describes it. The eyes are for the people that have the light bearers. They're the ones that know that hear from God. And so seven eyes upon one stone, the stone would be the entity, the whether it be a church or whether it be a government or whether it be a nation or whatever. But and I think Joshua, I think, is the priestly authority, and Zerubbabel that talks about in second chapter or fourth chapter of Zechariah is the civil authority, and so I've been studying that, and I think that was revealed to me probably 20 or 30 years ago, and I know the Lord told me, He says there's going to come a point where you're going to appoint seven people, and so I think that's the seven eyes upon one stone what He's talking about, and I don't know of any time in history that's ever been done, but I believe that that's what the Lord wants us to do. So I don't know. That might solve some of the problems if we can get this done right and seek the Lord on structure, but and procedures. But that's just my thoughts for now. As you explained this to me, Michigan Sue.
Well, it seems to me that one's going to have to know how to hire a heck of a personnel department so they can hire all the right people.
Right.
You're going to have a legal department. You're going to have an insurance department. I'm just trying to break down what this actually looks like hitting the ground. This is not a simple proposition.
No, it isn't.
It takes an enormous amount of sophistication, and so I'm just trying to break this down into real day-to-day reality and what that looks like. Aside from these astronomical numbers, well, when you translate those numbers into action, what does that require? What does that mean? How do you break it down? And this is an enormous undertaking that I think we're all going to need a lot of help with. So that's what I wanted to point out. I don't need to say anything more. I just wanted to get people thinking about that, and if one who believes has any comment on that.
Right. Well, one who believes, I'm sure, will respond to this, and we'll see what he has to say. But it is something that is, and we're all of us that have these Zimbabwe notes are potentially involved in something that big, if all these figures are correct.
Agreed. I wouldn't mind someone checking the math. The numbers are nearly off the scale. I mean, one of these calculations I did had 26 zeros to it.
Right.
So the number, and that's on the interest. It's just inconceivable. Anyway, that's it, Gary. Again, I really appreciate giving me an opportunity to lay this out a little bit more.
Okay, great. And make your comments, and Michigan Sue will see those, and maybe we can get her back to explain some other things, or give her opinion on some things, questions that come up. And so, anyway, I want to thank you so much, Sue. And anyway, it's just phenomenal. I mean, it's mind-boggling. And so this is something for us to think about. And if this happens the next few days, we need to be really careful on how on our plans and the first steps. And we need to seek God's guidance and direction, is my thinking. Anyway, I want to thank you all so very much, and thank you, Sue, and we'll be back later.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.